far as Marco goes, I hired him.
I think the real joy in this project, and working on this project, was the fact that it was a real labor of love for Tommy Lee Jones, and his enthusiasm and artistic capabilities really carried through.
I listened to the work of a lot of different composers, and Marco had been doing mostly horror films and doing standard commercial fare. I looked into his background a little bit better and learned that he'd graduated from Brown University in Rhode Island. So I had the idea that he might be well-read and that there might be a chance he would understand my jokes. And then I learned that he had been an apprentice of Ennio Morricone's for 3 years. So I could tell that he knew how to write a movie score, not only from listening to his work, but from looking at his background. And I thought he might be just right.
I was not only inspired writing it, but listening to him talk about the film. And he would come to my studio and talk about individual scenes. And even though he's not a musical person in terms of being able to express an idea and say, oh, the clarinets, well, we didn't use any clarinets, but a certain instrument needs to do this at this point. It's not that kind of dialogue. It's more of an abstract discussion about the scene.
I thought if we offered him a chance to do something artistic, something creative, and turn him loose, he'd be grateful to have that opportunity and would work cheap and do good work. And that's what happened. And as a result, you know, we have a beautiful score from Marco Beltrami, and I have a new friend.
The direction of the score, I think, was due mainly to the fact that when I saw the film, the thing that struck me most, besides this friendship theme that was between Tommy Lee Jones' character and this Melquiades character, was the landscape itself.
Marco would create a composition. He had some eccentric instruments that he wanted to use.
I thought that the music should sort of have an almost earthy feel to it, almost an indigenous feel, or an organic type of setting. And there's a lot of different percussion instruments that Native Americans and Mexicans use, like things that you wouldn't think of. For instance, there's this cactus that they actually strike the needles on the cactus, and it works as a percussive instrument. We would take that and mic it, and then sometimes play with the pitch of it and detune it and create loops out of it.
He had done some research into native music in Mexico and found out that they were able to get melodies out of cactus thorns.
Like that's a fifth apart, those two needles. I'm always excited trying something new. One of the worst things is to sort of feel any kind of stagnation in your work, and the ability to branch out and explore new areas is, I think, exciting. Is what keeps it fresh.
So he would come up with a piece of music that he thought was suitable for a stretch of film, and we simply exchanged ideas. I would show him the film, and I would say, there's a music cue starting here, Marco, and it goes on for 5 minutes and 12 seconds.
He definitely had ideas about if something wasn't working, talking about it, and yeah, he seemed to enjoy that part of the process very much, coming over to the studio and listening to music and talking about the things that really inspired him and things that maybe were going in the wrong direction.
A few days later, I'd come back to his house to see what he had just pieced together on a synthesizer, and listen and look and over his shoulder, and essentially tell him when I was happy with what I was hearing and when I was not. When something was too loud, when something was when something was overdone, when something needed to be gone, when something was absent, and when something sounded too much like Ennio Morricone. I have the greatest, highest regard for Morricone's work, but I didn't want to hear it.
Well, immediately when you see a desert landscape and you know, sort of a lone cowboy riding on the horse, it's hard to just ignore the musical images that Morricone has conjured up.
You can hear it. You're going to hear it anyway. But I didn't want to hear it too much.
One of his first comments to me was he came to one of our show and tells I called when I play some music, and he comes and sits in, and he looks at me and says, "So is Sergio Leone?" He says, "Is he still alive?" And I said, "No, he died, you know, a while back." He says, "Well, then I think it's probably a good idea to let him rest in peace."
Marco is very bright and very talented and very quickly responsive. And that's really how you communicate with him, is through music, and it's a very happy collaboration as far as I'm concerned.
I was conscious also in this movie that we were trying to do something that wasn't it wasn't supposed to be a rehash of a traditional Western or any kind of, it's something new, you know, and unique.